of these things. Hi, Alex.
Good morning, good evening,
Hey.
wherever you are.
Yeah.
A lot of familiar
Hello.
faces, some new
Good morning.
people.
Yeah.
Great. So let's start this show. I I think I planned about 1 hour. I don't want to take too much of your time, but let me start by first thanking everyone for jumping in. Hey, Dan. There are some people I know, some new people, and today, at the beginning of kind of 2026, we are all very anxiously looking at what AI is going to do to our professions and to our lives. Um, and I'd like to limit this discussion today to software, to a software profession. Um, hey, welcome. So let me just start with a preamble. I'll uh, bring you back to the early days in my career. My first paying job was actually in 1990, 36 years ago. I was hired as a junior programmer analyst, and we used to call, our profession used to be called programmers. Now we are developers and engineers. So, what is interesting, what I like to communicate today is I think I've seen the future, and it's going to be a little bit controversial maybe to some of you. But when I was hired, I was hired by a government agency called BC Info Health, and we were cutting paychecks for 150 hospitals in British Columbia in Canada. And I was kind of acting almost, you could say, as a solopreneur, because I was tasked with automating patient admission, transfers, and discharge in the hospitals. And so I was doing it all by myself, pretty much. I was meeting with hospital administrators, figuring out what they want automated. Then I would go back and I would build the app all by myself. And then I would drive to the hospitals and I would bring with me magnetic tapes. I would install the system. I would train the users. And I was doing this for 4 years, first 4 years in my career. So now the question is, how was I able to do that? And the answer is, I was hired to learn something called case tool. I don't know if some of you here remember case tools. Uh, Basically, case is acronym for computer aided software engineering. And what it is basically a declarative tool where you just go and you declare what you want the automation to do, and the tool turns around and generates COBOL code. Now, what's interesting is I had absolutely no idea how to program in COBOL. And also, I never, in the 4 years of my career there, I never ever had to look into the generated COBOL code, not even once. And I wasn't the only one doing that. We had later on we were hiring some contractors or consultants who were doing work with me. And not in any point, not did we have to look at the COBOL code. Now, at one point, I remember a colleague of mine showed me the generated COBOL code, and he said, "This is really dog's breakfast. This is like rat's nest, really, really lousy code." But nevertheless, he was doing what we were expecting it to do. And to fast forward to today, my question is, why can't we use AI to have a similar approach to developing software? Back then, I did not have to worry about DevOps. I did not have to worry about any of these things. All those things were baked into they used to call them business machines. And the machine was called IBM AS400. It was a self-contained, very slick, very performant, secure and safe machinery, so that we could only focus on the intended functionality. And that period was later on. I learned that there is a lot of obsession about code, what I call code fetishizing about code. Code is a big asset, and people are obsessing about it. But I went through this period where we did not have to look at the implemented code. We just had to learn how to talk to the machines and explain to them, here's what I want to see happen. And the machine turns around, generates the code. It's all baked in. We were automating the patient admission, transfers, and discharges. And also, part of that package was printing reports for the administrative staff. It was like turnkey solution. And so today, when we're looking at vibe coding and gas town and all these things that I know you guys are going to be discussing, what is it that is preventing us from engineering a similar machinery that is going to elevate or liberate us from the drudgery of going down into sewer and digging around and getting our hands dirty? Why can't we? I know this is a naive question, but why can't we have AI take that role, take care of the driving, of the maintenance, and we focus on growing the business, as Brian always says, alleviate the pain, serve the customer, serve the user, instead of serving the machinery, becoming enslaved by the foibles of the machinery and of the accidental complexity that happens with all our big system. So I don't know if this makes sense, if somebody wants to take it over, or you guys, if you feel like start a new topic. Anyone?
Yes, this number one. I had a similar journey early in my career, although I wasn't using any low-code solutions. But I was the business analyst, the DBA, the developer, the tester, and ops. So I was DevOps back in 1996.
Yeah.
Okay, and but the focus was always what's the business need, not how clean is the code. The clean code came from I have to be able to change it at 3 o'clock in the morning when something breaks. That was the back pressure in clean code. Why can't we do that today? There's an entire generation, a few generations of developers have been raised ever since the fad of hyper specializing the roles in software development. They don't know how to test because they have testing teams. They don't know how to operate because they have support teams doing it for them. They don't know how to architect pipelines because they have a DevOps team that's creating pipelines for them. And they lack the muscle memory required to focus on what guardrails do I need to put in place to keep me safe. I was actually just talking to Dave Farley about this morning, about that continuous delivery is now the only sane way to deliver software. If you understand that continuous delivery isn't shipping stuff fast, it's putting guardrails in place so that we can ship stuff fast. And any company that isn't focusing on, okay, how do I upskill my people around this mindset of what can break, how do I validate that it's not broken, and keep continuously hardening your pipelines around that, they're going to be in real trouble.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I forgot to mention, and in that period that I described, I was also carrying a pager. And I did experience in a few occasions the unpleasantness of being woken up in the middle of the night, hospital staff screaming something's not working. So that was a really good exposure to, 360 degrees. What does it mean to be a software shop? What does it mean to be a solopreneur? Delivering functionality and then also being behind it and being on the line or supporting it. And you learn, like you say, Brian, you learn that you cannot just offload or hand off to somebody else and my job is done and you guys figure it out. Fabian, you have a hand up?
Yeah. Hi, Fabian. So I'm an enthusiastic software developer for many, many years. I went all in on Agentic software engineering in September last year. And then I saw my IDE fading away. So first it was like cursor, IDE with a bit of AI, and then I switched this to the terminal because I have six agents in parallel, and I have 2 or 3 tabs, so I have 12 agents in parallel, and I'm using the IDE for writing Markdown files. The generated code is still, I could explain it. I know it's good because I guided my agents, so they have the solid principles, clean code, everything that I'm 15 years. I was CTO for 15 years, and usually I train my team how to write code the way that I think is good, and I did exactly the same with my agents. That's why the output is very good. Of course, I do always double check. So Cloud Code writes the code, and then the Codex is checking the code, or the other way around. So I'm always mixing these. But I can tell you that the result, the code and the feature is better than whatever code I could achieve with a team. I still have the feeling that I need to own the code, that I have to have my mental model. I need to be able to explain. I also need to make sure that some concerns, scalability, security, etc., are in place. But I see that, so I started in September, I'm doing it full time since then. I see it fading away. So with Opus 4.5, released, I think, 20 November, so 8 weeks ago, this was the turning point when the AI became better than the average developer. And and right now we need to do exactly what Brian said. We need to still make sure that the code is good, but the non-functional requirements are not good yet. But I feel it's only one generation away that it will just be perfect, and then I will lose the feeling that I have to look at it. So Alex, what you described, just let the machine do the coding, and coding becomes implementation detail. Nobody cares about code. I think we are not far away from this. It will happen this year, and super fascinating to see that almost no developer is aware of this. The entire profession will fade away this year, not in 5 years, this year, because it's probably the next generation. So Opus 5 or GPT-6 will just do it, and then there's just no point of looking at the code. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Fabian. We have Matt on the line.
Hi, folks. Good morning. Yeah, Matt Birch. I've been building things for about 20 years, and I've been AI first for the past year. So, Alex, to your question of what's really standing in the way for us to not have to review every PR, every line. Of course, people have mentioned a lot of great ideas that I think are going to be critical. Deterministic guidelines, and as Fabian mentioned, I think as orchestrators, we're going to need to be aware of the main moving pieces, the roles and the responsibilities of the apps and the work that we're doing, and be able to speak to that to our clients, to our bosses, to whoever. I don't see that going away for a little while. Who knows though. But one thing I wanted to mention too is, when you think about what the journey has looked like to getting to the point where we can put a PRD in one end and get a production quality deliverable out the other, there's like 3 kind of milestones that we had to solve. And the first one was the context window size, right? So first it was we can't possibly put enough context into the window at one time for the model to be able to make the right decisions. And then, Gemini came along with a million tokens with, maybe 50% of that, 60% of that being usable. And now the context window size isn't really a problem. So then it became, well, how do we manage all this context? How do we manage context on long tail runs? And we saw with the Anthropic blog post about long running harnesses, I've built an orchestration system using a similar thing, of course, Ralph. And, so I think we're getting to the point now where the context management side, in terms of remembering things that were at the beginning of the project, are a lot easier problems to solve now. I think that was the other big piece. And I think the third one that maybe we haven't seen a lot of, but is the idea of scope decomposition, right? So if you have a lot of great deterministic checks in place, solid, dry, YAGNI, linters, TS errors, comprehensive tests, TDD approach, that's 90% of what you need to be able to create a PR, be generally aware of what's going on, and then merge it pretty confidently without feeling like production's going to explode. But one thing that I think is yet to come is taking that behemoth spec, that whole feature, PRD or whatever, and breaking it into smaller and smaller chunks that you can then distribute out to a model. And my logic is, if we give models less to do, but we horizontally scale them, and then we have some sort of deterministic method that stitches those things back together, I feel like that makes it even easier and more reliable to really feel confident about what we're delivering. So instead of giving a Ralph loop, a 3-page PRD and go loop on this until you get it, it intelligently breaks it down. And I think doing something like that would also open us up to using lower powered models too. That's one thing I'm pursuing. I'm a big local inference guy. I've got a Mac Studio over here, and I'm like determined to figure this out. So I think scope decomposition may be, from a conceptual standpoint, possibly another big thing that we would be missing for truly hands-off code that you can just push and have it work.
Thanks, Matt. What do you mean by PRD?
Oh, I'm sorry. A product request document. So just a piece of scope, a feature level spec, something that describes what needs to be built. So my orchestration system, Elves, is a Claude Code skill and uses linear, as I'm sure a lot of us are using. And it's the source of truth, basically, for a piece of scope that needs to be implemented out the other side.
So can you, and I know there are other people waiting on, but just quickly pick your brain.
Sure.
Can you try and map that? Because, okay, I spent many years trying to learn how to do proper vertical slicing.
Mhm.
How would you, is that equivalent or something different from vertical slicing, the feature?
Well, so the way it works with Elves is that this PRD giant markdown file gets split up into individual tasks in linear. So Opus takes and converts that to, any range of number of tasks, and then those get pushed to beads and ultimately to linear. So that's kind of the first level of scope decomp that might be going on. I think it could go even lower than that, though, down to like, implement this function at this file. You need to implement this use effect, and here's these things, and just really kind of break it down into smaller and smaller pieces. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. Sveta.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So probably I'm just going mainly to share my experience report. So I'm Cvetan. I've been in software engineering for the past 12 years and maybe fully into exploring agentic coding for the past 6 months. So yeah, I'm quite on board with the deterministic verification, mainly through tests, linters, and so on. Recently, I've been trying to get into the orchestration thing, and at the moment I'm at the level where I can manage maybe 3 to 4 separate Claude Code instances, mostly working on toy projects. I haven't used it in production stuff. And I'm seeing that the main thing that's stopping me from trusting it is like because it's sometimes it doesn't implement what I want, basically, or for example, writes heavily mocked tests, or when I actually test the thing by hand after the spec is done and everything's implemented, I see that it hasn't implemented exactly what I want, even though I like provide the specs, details. And probably the other thing that's worrying me is maybe along the lines of what Alex asked about the vertical slicing. So I'm wondering if we start doing, if we're doing spec-driven development, aren't we going back to waterfall with the huge specification documents that we create at the beginning of each project? And is that the correct approach? Like, what about working in tiny steps, validating feature, like slice after slice, and seeing whether the direction is where we want to go? Because during the implementation of a specific functionality, you might discover that it's not what you actually want. You might want to change direction.
Yeah, but this happens in hours, right? I mean, even this waterfall iteration, it's still just 1 hour. So and that's why this is not waterfall.
Yeah, that's the other conclusion I've been arriving at, that probably it's, it might be an oversimplification, but probably it's not waterfall if the feedback loop is tight enough. So and that's why we can afford to do spec-driven development and feed in so much information and wait for the agent to do it.
Brian?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch a little bit on something that Matt touched on, or other people touched on. Number one, the code doesn't matter, except that it absolutely does, because of the back pressure of the burning of tokens to read the code. And so if your code's not optimized for the agents to go through it and quickly identify the things it needs to change without ingesting a whole bunch of stuff it doesn't need to know, then you're going to burn a lot of tokens. Example, I tried to brute force something as an experiment earlier this week. And with my pro account on Claude, I burned through all of my allocation of tokens for the next 4 hours in less than an hour. And then I went through and said, okay, now how do we, at the enterprise scale, optimize everything around token usage? That's the problem I'm working on now. The other thing is the vertical slices and distributing work across all the agents and how important it is to be able to decompose work horizontally that way. I've been doing that since the very first team when we learned how to do continuous delivery. That's how you orchestrate a team around continuous integration. It's tiny, thin vertical slices and integrate all the time. That's how real CI works. And so anybody who's experienced a continuous integration will have no problem with this whatsoever. That's just how we are used to working. I've been doing spec-driven development since 2015. We go as a team, we take a feature, we break it down into acceptance tests, usually in Gherkin, and then use those as the tiny vertical slices the team swarms on and gets the feature done.
Excellent, thank you, Brad. Just a quick remark. I've seen some people getting 4 or 5 latest Mac Minis, kind of putting them together and getting enough horsepower allegedly to kind of run the LLM models in their bedroom to bypass this problem with burning tokens and hitting the wall and having to wait 5 hours or something. Anyone has any opinion on that? Have anyone tried doing homegrown LLM machinery? I mean, you still need tens of thousands of dollars, but okay. Alexander?
Hi, thank you. I'm not sure whether it's okay for everyone to join in here.
Of course, of course.
Great.
Roundtable.
I'm a software developer of 20 years, and right now I'm more or less pivoting towards team questions. So as an observer of your discussion and not a user of AI for coding, I ask myself, where's the end game in this? You're, of course, doing the first steps right now. So you're pushing towards the usage of those models, statistical models. So where's the end game for innovation and not unlearning what we learned quite by bloodying our nose and stuff like that? So all the questions of our software development craft, sharpening their tools and sharpening their skills and brains, how do you stop the unlearning in the end game? And where's the path for innovation? Open source and being creative in your after work time, for example, creating all this software, sharpening your skills. All this goes away and you replace it somehow by a statistical model which is not innovative in itself. So that's my 50 cents and my thing that I wanted to.
So I would like to answer directly. I would like to answer directly if that's possible. Yeah. Can I? Because Matt, you have your hand up, but I don't want to interrupt.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Matt. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'll be quick. So Alexander, I can speak to your question real quick. My opinion, because I've hear this a lot and I understand where it's coming from. My opinion is that the job is evolving. There are the hand coding skill and the things that we, thinking about syntax and thinking about the problems that we used to solve that were a lot of fun to solve. I think the end game is that the software engineering is evolving to another layer of abstraction. And as someone that's been AI first for the last year, I've never solved harder problems in my career. I've never experienced more growth in my career. I don't feel like the skills that have entropied have in any way kept me from being more of an engineer, more of a builder, more of a creator than ever. One thing that people tend to forget about is that, professional AI augmented development is not ChatGPT, right? It is a complex, well thought out, carefully tuned pipeline that involves brand new concepts related to vector stores and embeddings and all of these things that your day-to-day engineer going through Jira tickets and creating dashboards will never see, never understand, and never even be aware that it's there. Like, that's what happens when you get into this in a deep and complex level with intention to go, how can I take all this technical knowledge that I've learned over the years and apply this to this new layer of abstraction of building. So I don't see it as we're losing, critical skills that we need to get back. I see it as the whole role is in the middle of an evolution right now from this concept of LLMs that will never go away, ever, until there's no internet. That's when AI will go away, when there's no more internet left. So it's going to be here forever, right? And so, I think that's really driving a lot of people really kind of exploring this to the edge. I want to give Brian and Fabian another chance to weigh in on this, Alex, maybe before we get into local inference, but I have all kinds of thoughts on local too. So, Fabian, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was saying, I'll be very, very short. I am not as smart as a team. We are all limited by our imagination, even more so today. And so where does the team come in? That we as a team start working on these harder problems. That's the other thing. We work on much harder problems. I haven't coded C in a lot of years. I used to code it all the time. I'm going to be incredibly rusty. Don't ask me to code C. I've moved on to harder problems with higher levels of abstraction. And so that's what happens with the team.
Thank you, Brian. And Matt, let me weigh in. I'm already talking too much. I'll try and shut up, but just let me say this. To Alexander's point, the end game. I've spent past almost 20 years really diving deep into learning and mastering the skills of properly designing and structuring the code. I was always championing TDD, and I had I organized a TDD conference and all that. And the reason I like TDD is because I suck at design, and the only way I can come up with a good design if I'm doing TDD. TDD practice is really guiding me towards how do we create, as Brian says, a habitable code that our colleagues and somebody else can move in and keep embellishing, improving. Today, I feel that those skills are completely irrelevant. I cannot sell them anymore. Nobody's interested in buying. I need to pivot. And as Matt says, now I need to turn to my imagination and say, look, as some of us here think, and Fabian said that pretty soon machines are going to be pretty good at creating this clean code. And as Brian said, okay, you have to own it, you have to worry about it. But we need to now focus on because in TDD you split expectation from how it gets fulfilled. And that's why I like TDD. And then I created the test-driven navigation, where I'm kind of leaving the role of the navigator to humans, to our imagination, and the navigator is not only reading the map, but is actually creating the map as we go. He all automates clean code worrying. Great, Brian. Anyway, I like that remark. Thank you. So again, I'm rambling, but the existing skills I feel like are waning. I cannot sell it anymore. Nobody wants to buy it anymore. I recently had an interview with a fintech company, and the CTO asked me, okay, Alex, so if we were to hire you, what will you bring to the table? And I say, I'll bring a technical excellence, and he tells me, like, we're not interested in that. We're not buying. We're interested in something else. Okay, cool. All right. I'm not going to cry about it. But another thing that I spent a lot of time doing is process. And here we have Woody Zuhl, who is the father of collaborative software development, keyboardless programming. And Woody, hats off to you. I really learned so much from you, and following your advice. That's another thing that I'm now confused about. How are we going to go with mob programming if we are pairing with machines? We need to find a way to do that.
You're hinting that I should interject something here?
Please.
Okay, so first of all, I think that we're really premature in thinking that AI is about coding. So I think that that's something we need to really be thinking about. My little brother, some of you know him, Fred, is a programmer as well, and maybe he's in the very top echelon of programmers I've had the honor to work with. And I was on a walk with him yesterday, and he said, well, AI is just a really flawed and moderately skilled thinking collaborator. And so he's been doing AI for a long time. He was consulting at a huge, maybe the world's largest airline for a while. And I think that what he has found is that we're probably totally mistaken in thinking about how these things are going to work we're going to work with these things. Someone else, I was listening to a fellow that I thought was really quite good, telling me that AI it gives us a way to consider more things more quickly. So we're getting to hopefully better decisions. It's about steering. And of course, this all ties into things I've been talking about for years. If we think, oh, this is a way for us to write code faster or create software faster, the creating of the software itself has never been the bottleneck. The figuring out what's really reasonable to write is what the bottleneck is, or what are the reasonable things to provide to our customers, or whatever it happens to be. And I'm going to really throw a monkey wrench into the thing. Most companies are totally focused on the wrong thing altogether. I think we have to go back to Deming and think about the way Deming talked about stuff. And I think that we're really problematic if we're not. We're going to have serious problems if we're not doing that. Basically, whoops, pardon me for a second. Okay, I have a friend I'm helping take care of. Sometimes he needs me to take him to the doctors or something. Okay. Shoot, so I get myself. So
Deming.
Most businesses are focused on making money. Deming says what we need to be focused is on sustainably creating good for the world and having it all sustainable employment. So having a wonderful place to work. This is what extreme programming was about. In my opinion, extreme programming was only about making the world of creating software a safe and sane place for developers to work. And if we don't have that, none of this matters. So what do I know? Not much, but I will say that I think it's critical stuff.
Thanks, Woody. Okay, and one last thing I want to say is this is very hypothetical and sci-fi and blah blah blah, but my issue is always with us having our work organized in such a way that we are deploying same thing in different environments. Just never made any sense to me, because if today we go on LinkedIn, we go on Medium, Substack, excuse me, and if I'm writing an article or something, I am actually doing it in their production environment. I'm not doing it in their development environment, and then I have to ship that to their QA environment and UAT and staging and pre-prod, and then it goes into production. Everything I'm doing is in production, but it's hidden behind the draft flag. And then when I do a preview and I look at what I've, all the images are there and tables and whatnot, and I say, okay, looking good, now I'm publishing. When I say publish, it does not get deployed somewhere else. It's in that environment. So I'm always thinking, why can't we develop software the same way behind a draft flag? So that when we are testing, we are actually testing in the same environment where this thing is going to be used. Because you all probably have experienced, I've experienced it a number of times, everything looks hunky-dory, works on my computer, let's put it in QA, works in QA, works in stage, works in UAT, works in pre-prod, go to prod, blows. So we get the black eye as engineers. And I'm like, why? Maybe we can use AI to start looking in that direction. Can we not have a situation where we are making changes in production, and then, when it's tested in production, then there shouldn't be any nasty surprises when we flip that draft flag and say, okay, publish. Go ahead, Fabian.
Yeah, I think what you describe would be very brave, right, for big companies. But at least for startups, if you really think it through, we're using coding agents to generate code, and then we're still doing the very traditional process, pull request, maybe without looking at it, we just squash merge it to main, and then we deploy it to stage in production. This is the traditional old way, and I think this is very inefficient. First of all, code is not deterministic anymore. So we are building code, but code is yesterday. The future is agents. So you're using a coding agent to build agents, because agents are much more powerful than code. The code is just a bit of plumbing around, but actually you're building agents. Agents are not deterministic, so the whole idea of testing is a bit pointless now, because you cannot test something manually that is not deterministic. You use your coding agent. So your coding agent will do a while loop the whole night and try to shake the other agent so it figures out how the agent reacts on all situations. And then you can also connect your coding agent to your production environment. That's what I'm doing all the time. So I can spin up Hetzner servers or whatever, because it just says, here's SSH, here's my API, and it builds me servers. And you can also connect your coding agent. You can deploy your coding agent on the production server. So it watches the agent that runs the application. So the coding agent scans the logs of the other agent and can in real time see problems and can in real time even patch these problems and deploy. So the idea is that coding agent not only for building code, also for the entire life cycle, it could completely automate it, react on user feedback, it could monitor your Hotjar screens. So the AI becomes a living mechanism that manages another living mechanism. And I think this is where we go with software. So not writing line by line and for each and if. I think this is dying. This is yesterday. This will not happen anymore. So it's really, the future is large-scale distributed systems full of agents, thousands, millions of agents that work with each other. So no human has a chance to understand what's going on. And the coding agent is just a little helper tool to helps you to, but actually it will be super complicated. And Matt, I totally agree. The level of intelligence and skill and experience you need as a developer will be extremely high, so that many developers are just out of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
you.
Lot
of thoughts. Sorry.
No, that's great. Just a question for you. So my career has been like one trajectory of continuous discovery, and we are, especially when we're doing XP and TDD, and as Brian says, BDD. What I find the process does, it's like almost an archaeological expedition where we are kind of unearthing certain things about the domain that, at the outset of the project, we have the least amount of knowledge. And then as soon as we start working, we gain more knowledge. And that knowledge, exposes the domain, exposes the reality to us. If we were not engaged back and forth in small steps, and instead we would be navel gazing in the ivory tower, and we know everything ahead of time, and we have 5-year roadmap, we know how laughable that is, and we've all been in projects where this kind of fails miserably. And so with these agents and all that, where is this discovery? Where is this iterative, incremental process of learning about the reality that we are trying to model and figuring out those murky corners? You cannot figure them out unless you really try. As I think, as Woody said, the work only reveals itself once we start working.
What you're describing is history. So you explain, we can to build software, we need to understand the problem and then the solution. But this will be impossible in the future. You will start with the intent, and then the agents will figure out the rest and do what you want. But we as humans have no chance to comprehend what's going on, because they will spawn, they will do A/B tests with 1 million different scenarios in parallel. They will build gigabytes of experience data. I think the human is not part of the game anymore. And this is possible with existing technologies, just we are not yet there to build these big systems. But the idea is to make all these agents go full throttle, and your goal is increase my revenue or increase my conversion rate, and then the agents will do it. And we as humans can only look at it and say, wow, but we will not understand. And I think we are there already. It's just not used like this.
Are you saying that the agents will be able to understand and appreciate empathy?
No. What I say is that agents act on a prompt and tools, and you combine them. So one agent is observing, writing the prompt for the other agent, and this way they will influence each other, and you have no idea. That's why there's no code that is deterministic, and you can test-driven develop it, because you will not know what the system is just self-improving with a given tools. So not hyper intelligence. It's just the giving tools. Just if you have prompt that writes agents that writes prompt for each other, this will be a living mechanism already.
I know,
but how do they learn?
They write something to disk or to database or GraphRock. Just the existing technologies would be enough to build this monster.
Okay, but going back to Woody's remark, the idea when we are building something is to make it habitable for humans, and to be capable of doing that. We humans, we understand each other. We know what is agony, what is feeling listless and helpless and hopeless, and that is very sometimes neglected by software engineers who, Unix people call users losers, and all that. So I still feel like there is a need for empathy, for understanding the human position, the principle of least astonishment, and all these things. How are we going to teach agents to do that? Alexander?
And just one thought came up to my mind. In the 20 years I've been doing software, where the hardware capability is exploding, instead of doing software better, we did more of it and faster because of the capabilities of the machines. And the constant I see, we always bid up more than we can chew. And this sounds a bit like exactly what you, Fabian, said right now. Sounds really exactly like the definition of biting up more than we can chew again.
Okay,
and of course, I just wanted to add this innovation question that I always also posed earlier. That was not addressed right now, or did I miss it? Because how do we create innovation with the statistical models doing all the coding and no more like the creative software that classically has been created and new stuff to learn on being created by human beings with new ideas?
Yeah, but there is maybe it's a contention, but it's called generative AI, not regurgitative AI. So if it's generative, then it will generate brand new innovative stuff. Otherwise, it's not generative.
But then it needs to change, because right now it's statistical.
Doesn't matter. Maybe we are all statistical. We don't know, right? It's
okay. Now we are at philosophical questions.
We don't want to go there. No. Okay, Brian, please go ahead.
I was just wanting to touch on the developers being out of the game. There's a lot of people who are expressing fear, which I understand. Some of them are expressing it fear because they haven't tried stuff, some because they have tried stuff and it didn't work the first time, and then it's obviously garbage. I actually started a blog post on that several years ago and then I threw it away. But there's also the group of people who are out there out of fear trying to use peer pressure and dev shaming other developers into not trying things. Those people are materially harming other people's careers while suiciding their own career. And I get annoyed at those people. It's just like continuous delivery. People who try to shame people that are not using continuous delivery are causing material harm because CD makes your lives better, like what he was saying around XP. I've experienced this myself many times. CD it's a better way of living for developers. I think it's important to understand that, number one, people have fear, and how do we help them? But then also, how do we deal with the loud, angry, you can't get off my lawn, LLMs are going away, and it's all going to go back to normal?
Yeah, but that's a good point, Brian. And a few times I discussed that, and this is completely my personal opinion. But there's always the same kind of process in all these things. First, they ignore you. So when LLMs came about, a lot of people just kind of pretended, no, Lala is not there. Then, what's the next one? Then they ridicule you. So people will laugh, oh, this is so stupid, I can't believe, blah, blah. Then they get angry at that. Then they bargain, and then they capitulate. So we may be now at the angry phase, I'm not sure. I'm hoping we get to the bargaining phase.
I've just never seen this much anger over anything in my entire career. I mean, yeah, you can denigrate microservices because you didn't learn how to do them correctly. You can denigrate CD because you didn't learn how to do it correctly. But I've never seen this level of just anger at a technology.
The only other thing I've noticed with anger was TDD, testing. With like, why do I need to duplicate my work? I write the code, now I have to write the test, that's stupid, blah, blah, blah. But it's nothing compared to this, Matt?
I guess with the current topic being, what Brian has talked about, and of course anyone that's followed me on LinkedIn knows you used to not be afraid to hop in the comments and kind of, go at it. But I think a lot about this. Because I see the same thing as well. And especially as someone that's come from the outside, I'm I had a very non-traditional pathway. I started with design. I don't have a CS degree. I'm self-taught. I worked alone for the first 10 years of my career. Like, I didn't even work with an IC team as an IC until 75% of the way through my career. So I'm kind of from the other side of the tracks anyway. And I think a part of the reason why you have so much philosophy and emotion and almost this religious fervor one way or the other is because of AI's non-deterministic way. You have people that have spent 10 or 15 years as an engineer, and they spend a month with AI, and all they can produce is crap. And so they say AI produces slop, and anyone that uses AI isn't a real engineer, and they're lying. And I don't know how many dozens of times I've been accused of lying and all. I'm just doing it for money. And I think it's because when two people use the same tool with AI, they're going to get different results, even with little microscopic differences in how they communicate with it. And it's also, as you have people that aren't moving right now, right? They have not tried any frontier models. They have not done any reading about orchestration. The last time they touched AI was ChatGPT 12 months ago. People like us are going to look crazier and crazier and crazier because we continue, like we're at the point now where my orchestration system, I can put requirements in one end, I get production deliverables out the other. And it's good code and it's deployed, and I become an orchestrator, and I'm solving problems at a much higher level. To your point, Alexander, about how are we discovering new things? We're discovering new things at a completely different plane. We're not spending our time innovating new ways of compressing style sheets anymore. Now it's about how can we build entire ecosystems and manage entire ecosystems. We're solving much bigger problems. We're innovating much bigger problems right now. And that's where I see the kind of evolution of this going. And so I guess to bring it all back home, I think a lot of the reason why the discussion around this feels mushy and hard to define and overly emotional is that when you dig far enough into an LLM, no one can really explain why it does what it does. Mm-hmm. It's this black box that we all do our little dance in front of to try and get it to produce something that we can use in production. And some people are better at it and some people are worse. And I think that makes the discussion around it a lot more challenging.
Okay. May I reply directly? This is more biting more than we chew is the thing that I realized one pattern in my career, that there are people out there with superpowers. They can upload everything and they are not biting more than they can chew. But the average guy, that's a pattern that I seem to feel there, is not superpower, Superman, Batman, software developer. So for the average person, that is the big question. How much do we really bite? How much can we chew?
I feel seen. Okay, Fabian.
Yeah, I have quick. You make it quick, okay? So first, non-deterministic, Matt. So people are also non-deterministic. If you give the same task to 3 developers, you get 3 different results. So this is not new. And there are already several studies to make them deterministic. So and the common approach is you run the same task to 1,000 agents, and then you make statistically find the best solutions and overlapping and which agent. But I think this non-deterministic thing, LLMs are non-deterministic, but agents can be deterministic. This is very important for industry. So you cannot have random results when you control machines. I think this is just about determinism. But still, people are also non-deterministic. This is not really a problem. And quick answer to Brian, what we do with the people who do not want to join, who are not willing, who are skeptical. So I do training. I train companies doing agentic coding, and I met a lot of skeptical people. But whenever they saw it, they switched. So I think everyone switched because if you can be super skeptical, but then when we build together that feature you estimated was 2 weeks, and the feature is done in 2 hours, then you lose you will not return the right code. You will just do it, and it happens. But however, there will be people left over. And it doesn't matter because the number of jobs will shrink anyway. So people have to find a new profession. And I totally understand that people are afraid because, they earn good money because they're developers. Nobody needs developers anymore. So I totally understand that this is a bad situation for people. But that's evolution, right? They will find other jobs.
Okay.
Well, it's not even skepticism, real quick. It's not even skepticism. What I'm talking about is the people who are actively trying to shame people to avoid these tools, calling them names for avoiding these tools,
Yeah.
questioning their professionalism for using these tools. Those people need to burn.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. Okay. So I would. Sorry. I would say this.
You're on.
I think. Yeah. Sorry. What you're describing, Fabian, I really like what I'm hearing. To me, this sounds like democratization of high technology. And I'll just draw a quick parallel from what I described at the beginning. I was using the case tool. That was democratization because I got a cushy, well-paying job without having any qualifications in software, in programming, because thanks to that tool. Uh, and I think a lot of people will get a stab at it without having formal education, hopefully, to build interesting system. I was able to build a patient admission system without having any software development skills because I was shielded by a sophisticated tool. So in that regard, when we democratize, same as what happened with spreadsheets, where a lot of people got their hands on Excel and started building some automation there. I know there's people waiting to talk, but I would just like to, again, because we have here a rare chance to have Woody with his very humanistic view of things. Woody, do you have anything to add to this democratization, and where do you think this might lead us as a society?
Oh man, if I could somehow predict where things are going, that would really be. I wouldn't need to do anything else, right? I'd
Yeah.
be the wealthiest man in the world or
Yeah.
person in the world.
But just your
But
opinion.
yeah, so I think that we don't know where we're at yet. Things are changing very frequently, and I believe first of all we need to understand this and really work towards having a highly amplified learning environment. This is what matters right now: is that we're really good at learning rapidly, and so this is part of why I really like teaming for AI. I don't really see any difference between what we're doing with AI and what we do with coding, as far as we still need to work together. If we're really getting to the place where humans won't be needed at all, I'll be a bit surprised about that.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. It's like software was never put in place to eliminate the humans. It was put in place to assist humans, and it completely changed whatever domain they were working in. And I can give a very good example from my own life. In 1980, let's say, I was a proficient sign painter, and I learned to paint signs. And I owned a business, and I was very good at it. But you could tell computers were going to become massively important in this in our industry. And so I thought, oh, I better start learning about computers. It turned out that it did completely change the industry, where it used to take you essentially years to become a proficient sign painter who could design, lay out, do all the physical things that need to be done, all the artistic things that need to be done. It changed that to somebody who could buy a computer and a plotter and just crank out letters and make signs. So all of a sudden, the quality of the design of most signage just toppled. It's because the skills needed that were built over years were no longer needed. And the money that you could make, where when I got into sign painting, part of why I chose it was you could make a very good living with no college degree or anything. I was a musician trying to find a way to make some money. And so the end result, though, was that we couldn't, we would no longer be able to make a living doing what we had been trained to do over a few years.
Right.
And it's completely changed the industry. I do see that's what's happening here. All the research that I've seen so far, which isn't much, is saying, yeah, this AI stuff is useful, but it's also causing all kinds of issues. And I believe that is sort of what I had experienced in that other industry. So I don't think there's anything unique about this.
Right.
I guess that's what I should be saying.
Well, what I want to pick your brain on, and everybody's brain, just quickly. It seems like we have grown to use computers as super fast typewriters, and still to this day, the entire profession is kind of based around emulating paperwork. And to me, that
Yes.
is very, very non-imaginative, very kind of wasteful. And why are we so dragging everything down to the ways we used to do things before we had computers and networks? Why aren't we inventing brand new ways of automating life, making our societies more just, more habitable? Why do we always fall back on these forms and papers and, sending them paper workflow, blah, blah, blah? That's kind of very debilitating. So another thing I want to talk about, so we're running out of time, but how can we use AI to innovate and to do a jailbreak, a prison break out of this kind of world with a rectangular square surface with some symbols on it? There's much more to life than just a screen with some symbols and maybe some images on it. So anyway, I already took much. So who is next on the line? Nagarju.
Nagaraju, yeah, you can call me Naga, the first part,
yeah.
or Raj, the last part, whatever works for you guys. Hey, by the way, I have 2 decades of experience in the entire life cycle of software development. I'm still learning. Last 1 year is like crazy for me. I'm into generating agentic development mostly. So I resonated many things with being managing AI platform and other stuff, AI FinOps. First, I'll start with Udi's point, which I really noticed that one. Yeah, AI definitely productive-wise, individual productivity-wise is good, but definitely I can say 100% can't replace humans because in some of the agents where I dealt with dealing with finance, especially where money is very important. So finance will have more idea about what they're doing with accounting, everything, cost accounting they do for a business, right? And engineers only know development, use these tools, and know that the requirements come from their workflows and do it. But it's always they don't know, like, context of business, because under the finance work is sales, marketing, other end customers. There are a lot of contractual things are there. Only they know the subject matter expertise, right? So decision making, definitely humans are there, but at the same time there is a fear also, right? If you have 40 people out there in finance or in some department, probably when agentic workflow in place, there is a chance that it may not require that many people. I seen that very clearly. We have to say it loud, right? Because that's a fact. Because 40 may not be needed, maybe 20. That's what business saves cost could be. But yeah.
Okay, thank you, Nagarju. Guys, we are running out of time. I don't want to keep you too long. I really appreciate you taking this on Friday. I learned a lot today. This is amazing. I don't know if you want to continue at some other time when it's suitable to all of you guys. Maybe some of you are asking, where are women here? Believe me, I have sent invitations to women. It was a short notice. Svetlana and I was kind of talking. Everybody was busy. They had to, and they asking, when is the next one? So what tentatively do you think would be our next slot? Because there's some, I think women should be also added to this. They have maybe a fresh perspective. Since there's
idea, Alex. Yeah. Hey, if anything's on the AI platform, AI FinOps, feel free to reach out to me because my answer ready. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Any last words before we end this roundtable? Go ahead, Alexander.
There will be an interesting thing happening if the first agent will be joining in here in this talk, plus the women.
How will we know? How will we know it's an agent?
Maybe we can use some
sometimes.
For recording our thing and you summarize our talks. And
I suspect Matt is an agent, but I'm not sure.
I will never tell. You'll never know.
Yeah. That's what the agent will say, right?
Alex, thank you for setting this up. I think
yes, thank you, Alex.
Very interesting talk.
This was amazing. Guys, you're fantastic. Let's continue. I think we can change the world for the better. It's easy to change the world for the worse, right? So that's a no-brainer. But how about we try and do it for the better?
That's right.
Awesome.
That's right.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, y'all. See ya.
Cheers.
Right.